Some encounters are not coincidental. If Emma had managed to enter the gala that night, she would have met Daniel, but she was rejected at the door. Because fate wanted their story to begin in a much more powerful way. This is a story about the power of hope and second chances, light that comes from the most unexpected places during life's darkest moments, and proof that love can overcome social classes, pasts, and all obstacles. Rosie's Cafe in Brooklyn was filled with the smells of burnt coffee and grease that stubbornly clung to Emma Carter's hair, no matter how often she washed it. At 26, Emma moved through the morning rush crowd with the grace of someone who had done it 1,000 times, balancing a tray of pancakes in one hand and refilling coffee for truck drivers and early risers with the other. Her apron was stained, her sneakers worn down, but her smile never faded. Not because she loved the job, but because the tips paid bills, and those bills were keeping her sister alive. Emma glanced at the clock above the counter. 10:47 a.m. 4 more hours until the end of her shift. Then she'd jump on the subway to Manhattan for her second job, tutoring high schoolers in algebra. Between the two jobs, she barely had time to breathe, let alone sleep. But every dollar she earned went toward a single goal: keeping Sarah, her older sister, on dialysis until she could get a transplant. Sarah, 32, was now too weak to work, tethered each day to a dialysis machine in their cramped apartment. The transplant waiting list was impossibly long, and insurance, if you could call it that, covered barely half the cost. Emma had done the math. Even with every cent she had saved, they were still short $200,000. That number haunted her, even in her dreams. "Order up," the cook bellowed, snapping Emma back to reality. She grabbed the plate of eggs and bacon and weaved past Lena, her co-worker and best friend at Rosie's. Lena was a whirlwind of energy, her braids bouncing as she chatted and worked. A sophomore at New York University, she juggled school and shifts with a smile that reminded Emma maybe the world wasn't so terrible after all. "Hey, Em," Lena called during a lull in the crowd. She leaned against the counter, eyes twinkling. "You look like you're carrying the whole city on your back. When's the last time you slept?" Emma gave a half smile, wiping her hands on her apron. "Sleep is a luxury, remember?" Lena's expression softened. She knew about Sarah, about the mountain of hospital bills, stacked like some cruel game of Jenga. "You need to take care of yourself. Sarah needs you strong." "I'm fine," Emma replied, though her voice trembled a little. Fine was the lie she told herself every day. That afternoon, Lena dug into her bag and pulled out a cream-colored envelope with glittering gold trim. It looked completely out of place in the greasy cafe, like a diamond in a junkyard.
"Here."
Emma frowned as she took the envelope. It was heavy, made of thick, expensive paper.
"What is this?" "An invitation to a charity gala tomorrow night. The kind where rich people throw money at good causes."
Lena grinned.
"My department gave it to me, reward for making the dean's list, but I just got accepted to a summer program in Chicago. I'm flying out tomorrow. You should go."
Emma's stomach twisted. A gala. She pictured floor-length gowns and champagne flutes.
A world so far removed from waitressing and subway rides. "Lena, I can't. I don't belong there." "That's exactly why you should go."
Lena insisted.
"You're always talking about helping Sarah. This gala is hosted by Blackwell Enterprises, a huge financial firm with money to burn. You could talk to someone, find a sponsor or a grant to cover the transplant."
Emma hesitated, fingers brushing the envelope's edge. It was insane. She wasn't a fundraiser or a socialite, just a waitress who didn't even own a proper dress. But Lena's words sparked a small, stubborn hope.
"Lena, I wouldn't even know what to say." "No one checks ID. Just flash the invite and walk in like you own the place. You can do this, Emma." Emma tucked the envelope into her apron pocket, heart pounding. "Okay, I'll go. But if I make a fool of myself, I'm blaming you."
That night, Emma sat at the wobbly kitchen table in their Bushwick apartment, the hum of Sarah's dialysis machine filling the silence. Sarah lay asleep on the couch, her face pale and gaunt. Emma's heart ached at the sight. They had lost their parents in a car accident 8 years ago. Since then, it had been just the two of them. Sarah had been the strong one, the big sister who tied Emma's shoelaces and taught her to ride a bike. Now Emma was the one holding them together, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could last. She opened the envelope and pulled out the card. Elegant black ink read, "You are cordially invited to the annual Blackwell Enterprises Charity Gala in support of medical research and public health initiatives. The Plaza Hotel, Manhattan. Formal attire." The Plaza, an icon of luxury Emma had only ever seen in movies. Her hand shook at the thought of walking through its doors. Emma pulled out her old laptop, its fan wheezing, and opened a new document. If she was going to the gala, she had to be ready. She typed out a short summary of Sarah's condition, a one-page overview of the illness, the transplant costs, and their struggle. Then she opened her closet, and her heart sank. It held only secondhand jeans and faded sweaters, nothing remotely formal. But Sarah had a dress, a simple navy blue gown she'd worn to a friend's wedding before falling ill. Emma tried it on, standing in front of the cracked bathroom mirror. It was a little loose, and the hem was slightly frayed, but it was the best she had. She pinned the waist with safety pins and practiced a smile. It felt like armor, fragile but necessary. The chandeliers of the Plaza Hotel glowed golden against the Manhattan sidewalk as guests in designer evening wear stepped out of sleek limousines. Emma Carter stood off to the side, clutching the invitation in her hand. Her heart was thudding so hard, it felt like it might leap from her chest. The navy blue dress she had borrowed from a Brooklyn thrift store clung awkwardly to her frame. Its hem was frayed, and the waist still held together with safety pins. She had done her best, brushed her hair, dabbed on a bit of Sarah's old lipstick. But standing in this sea of luxury, she felt like a fish lost in the desert. She took a deep breath and reminded herself, for Sarah, she just needed to get inside and talk to one person. Emma stepped up the marble stairs leading into the lobby, trying to keep her chin high even as her cheap flats clicked noisily on the stone. The crowd ahead buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses spilling from the grand ballroom. She slipped into the check-in line, hands trembling as she held out the invitation to a woman behind a registration desk. The woman, dressed in a tailored black suit and wearing a name tag that read Claire, took the card. Her eyes flicked over Emma from head to toe, pausing on her scuffed shoes and frayed hem. The smile on Claire's lips barely masked her disdain. "Your name, ma'am?" "Emma Carter," Emma answered quietly but clearly, trying to keep her voice steady. Claire tapped the iPad in front of her, her brow furrowing. She looked back at the card, then at Emma again, this time slower, as if appraising a knockoff handbag. "I'm sorry, but I don't see your name on a list. This ticket is issued to Lena Thompson, and I'm afraid it's non-transferable." Emma's face flushed hot. "Lena is my friend. She couldn't come, so she asked me to attend in her place. She said the ticket would work." Claire pressed her lips together, exchanging a glance with the staffer next to her. "Ma'am, this is a by-invitation-only event. We have strict protocol. If your name's not on the list, I'm afraid you won't be admitted." A woman nearby, dressed in glittering sequins, whispered to the man beside her, loud enough for Emma to hear, "She probably thinks this is some free church buffet." Emma's cheeks burned, but she forced herself to speak. "Please, I just need a few minutes inside. I'm here for something important. I promise I won't cause any trouble." "Ma'am, I've made myself clear," Claire said coldly. "Otherwise, I'll have to call security." Before Emma could respond, a tall security guard stepped forward. He placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "Ma'am, this way, please." Emma stood outside under the cold street lamp, still gripping her handbag tightly. Through the glass doors she could see the bright lights and hear the muffled music and laughter inside. Her invitation now lay on the ground, stepped on by someone's polished shoe. Part of her wanted to flee, to run back to her tiny apartment and pretend this night had never happened. But then she thought of Sarah, of her sister's tired eyes still clinging to hope. She couldn't give up. Not yet. Then a voice rang out, low and sharp as a blade slicing through the air. "What's going on here?" All heads turned. Emma looked up, heart pounding. A tall man in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo stepped out of a Bentley that had just pulled up. He moved with the unshakable confidence of someone used to commanding a room, every step parting the space around him. His piercing blue eyes swept over the scene and halted on Emma, as if he had just stumbled upon a forgotten memory. It was Daniel Blackwell, CEO of Blackwell Enterprises. At 35, he was the embodiment of power and enigma, a man both revered and feared by New York's elite. No one spoke as he approached, his gaze cutting through the crowd before landing on Emma. And in that instant, her face, those warm brown eyes, and the determined, trembling expression triggered a memory from 2 years ago. A park in Brooklyn, a terrified little boy, and the stranger who had saved his son's life. Without hesitation, Daniel stepped forward. His voice, icy yet commanding, rang out, "She's my wife. I suggest you treat her with the respect she deserves." Silence fell like a hammer. The murmurs stopped as if someone had pressed mute on the entire scene. The guard's jaw dropped. Claire, the check-in staffer, stood frozen, her iPad nearly slipping from her hands. Emma was completely stunned. His wife! She had never met this man in her life. She had only seen his name on the invitation. "Miss Carter? Mr. Blackwell?" Claire stammered, struggling to regain composure. "We didn't know. The ticket is under someone else's name." "And I don't care whose name is on the ticket," Daniel cut her off, voice low but enough to silence Claire instantly. "She's my wife, and she belongs here more than anyone else. Now move." No one dared argue. The security guard stepped aside quickly, bowing his head slightly. Claire backed away, cheeks flushed. The crowd parted like a curtain, creating a path into the glittering lobby. Emma stood there, too stunned to move, her feet rooted to the marble steps. Daniel's gaze softened just a fraction, offering a wordless reassurance. "Come on," he said quietly, just for her to hear. Emma let him lead her, as if floating through a surreal dream. Daniel led her away from the buzzing lobby into a quiet hallway lined with plush red carpet and framed paintings. At the end, he opened the door to a small room, likely a VIP lounge. Inside, the lighting was softer, with a leather sofa, a mahogany coffee table, and windows overlooking the sparkling city lights of Manhattan. Daniel closed the door behind them, and for the first time since entering the plaza, Emma felt like she could breathe. She turned to him, clutching her old handbag tightly. "Mr. Blackwell, I don't understand what's going on. Why did you say I was your wife? We've never even met." Daniel stood near the window, hands in his pockets, his back to her. He was silent for a moment, as if weighing his words. Then he turned, his deep blue eyes meeting hers, no longer cold, but calm and steady. "You're mistaken, Miss Carter. We have met. 2 years ago, at Prospect Park, Brooklyn. You saved my son's life, Leo. He went into anaphylactic shock from a peanut allergy. I owe you more than you can imagine." Emma blinked. Her mind went blank. She dug through her memory, and the image slowly came into focus. A summer afternoon, sitting on a park bench eating lunch between shifts. A little boy, maybe 3 or 4, ran past and suddenly collapsed, clutching his throat, his face turning blue. A man, Now she recognized him as Daniel, had screamed in panic, but no one knew what to do. Emma, thanks to a basic first aid course at the community center, had recognized the signs of anaphylaxis. She'd rushed over, rummaged through the boy's backpack, found an EpiPen, and injected him without hesitation. Once the boy could breathe again, she had made sure he was stable and quietly left, not wanting to make a scene. "That was you," Emma whispered, her voice trembling. "I didn't know. I just did what anyone would do. I didn't think it was a big deal." Daniel stepped closer, his expression softening with something like gratitude and perhaps a trace of sadness. "Not a big deal, Miss Carter? You saved Leo's life. I searched for you after that day, but you never left your name. No contact. All I had was the memory of a young woman, brown hair, a gentle voice, and eyes that made me believe everything would be okay." He paused, voice quieter. "I've never forgotten that face." Emma felt her cheeks flush. She wasn't used to attention, especially not from someone like Daniel Blackwell. "But why say I'm your wife? You didn't need to do that. I just wanted to get in and ask for help for my sister." Daniel cut in, voice firm. "I saw how they treated you out there, like you didn't belong. If I hadn't stepped in, I wouldn't deserve to be Leo's father or to hold any kind of dignity. Calling you my wife was the fastest way to shut them up." Emma stared at him, unsure what to say. Her heart was a swirl of emotions, shock, gratitude, and a touch of fear. "Thank you," she finally said, voice choked, "but I don't want to cause trouble. I'll just go now." Daniel raised an eyebrow and stepped closer. "Miss Carter, you made it all the way here in a dress that doesn't fit, in worn-out flats, because you had something important to do, didn't you? Don't let those people out there convince you that you don't belong." He paused, eyes steady. "Stay. Attend the gala as my guest of honor. No one will dare question you again, I promise." The grand ballroom sparkled under a sea of lights. Champagne flutes glittered with reflections from the massive crystal chandeliers overhead. Emma Carter walked beside Daniel Blackwell, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum. Daniel handed her a glass of champagne, his voice low and calm. "Relax, they're just curious." Emma took a sip. The fizzy wine tickled her tongue, unfamiliar and sharp, making her scrunch her nose slightly. Before she could speak, a high-pitched, excited voice rang out, "Daddy! Daddy!" A small boy, about 5 years old, came running toward them in an adorably tiny suit with a crooked black bow tie. Leo Blackwell had the same striking blue eyes as his father, but his smile was bright, carefree, like sunshine. He stopped in front of Emma, his wide eyes blinking in astonishment, then burst out, "You're the lady who saved me from the park!" Emma froze, her champagne glass nearly slipping from her hand. Before she could react, Leo had thrown his little arms around her legs, burying his face in her dress. "I remember you. You gave me the shot. You told me I was a superhero," he chirped, voice high and thrilled. The surrounding crowd stilled. Whispers faded. Some guests turned to look, their expressions shifting from curiosity to surprise. An older woman with a pearl necklace smiled warmly, placing a hand over her heart. Emma felt her face flush as heat rose to her cheeks. She crouched down to Leo's level, speaking softly. You really remember me? I'm so happy to see you're doing well." Leo nodded furiously, grinning wide. "You said I didn't need a cape to be a superhero. I told Daddy all the time, but he couldn't find you." He grabbed her hand tightly with his tiny fingers. "You're my superhero." Emma laughed, the sound rising naturally from her chest. Leo's innocence seemed to melt all her worries. Daniel stood nearby, champagne glass in hand, watching them with a look she couldn't read. He'd seen Leo laugh before, but not like this, not with such joy. The gala at the plaza was winding down. The chandeliers dimmed as guests in glamorous gowns and tuxedos began to exit the ballroom. Emma Carter stood in a quiet corner, gripping her worn handbag, still a little dazed. Daniel Blackwell stood nearby, speaking with a group of donors, effortlessly poised in his black tuxedo. Leo, eyes drooping from sleepiness, clung to his father's leg. "Miss Carter," Daniel called, his deep voice calm but clear. "Let me take you home." Emma shook her head and stepped toward him, her voice hesitant. "That's not necessary, Mr. Blackwell. I can take the subway. You've done more than enough already." Daniel raised an eyebrow, his blue eyes narrowing slightly. "More than enough? You saved my son's life, and tonight you made him laugh more than he has in weeks. If anyone owes someone, it's me." They stepped outside into the cool, late-night air. Inside the car, silence settled in, broken only by the soft purr of the engine. Emma looked out the window, searching for words. "Leo's wonderful," she finally said softly. "He reminds me of my sister when we were little." Daniel glanced at her. "You're very close with your sister, aren't you? You came to the gala because of her, didn't you?" Emma startled, surprised he had guessed. She clutched her bag tighter, the folded page about Sarah still inside, untouched. She took a deep breath and decided to be honest. "Yes, I came in place of a friend. Lena gave me the invitation and said there might be donors here. My sister Sarah has kidney failure. She needs a transplant, but the costs, we can't afford it. I just hoped I might find someone, a charity, a sponsor, who could help." She stopped, her face burning with shame. "I know it probably sounds ridiculous. A waitress crashing a gala to ask for money, but I didn't know what else to do." Daniel said nothing at first, his gaze still fixed on the road ahead. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and steady. "It's not ridiculous at all. You risked your pride to help your sister. That's something not everyone has the guts to do." When the Bentley finally pulled up in front of the aging building in Bushwick, where Emma's apartment was, he turned off the engine and faced her. "I want to cover the cost of your sister's transplant. Let me do that as a way to repay you for what you did for Leo." Emma stared at him, stunned. Part of her wanted to say yes, to seize the chance to save Sarah, but another part, her pride, rose up stubbornly. "Thank you," she said, voice tight with emotion. "But I can't accept. I didn't come to the gala looking for charity. I wanted to find a way, my way, to do this for my sister." Daniel looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. Even deeper respect. "I understand, but I have another offer." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Leo needs someone to care for him after preschool, a few hours a day. His current nanny is retiring soon, and honestly, Leo doesn't open up to people easily. But with you, he's different. Would you consider it? I'll pay well. You'd stay in the guest house at my estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. It'll make everything easier." Emma blinked, her mind reeling. Work for Daniel Blackwell? Live in his mansion? The idea felt like something out of a fairy tale, but also full of unknowns. "You don't have to answer right away," Daniel said, sensing her hesitation. "Think about it. I'll wait." Emma drew in a deep breath and looked into his piercing blue eyes. There was something in them, not just gratitude, but an invitation into a different world. "All right," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "I'll try. For Leo." Daniel nodded, the faintest smile crossing his lips. "Good. I'll have everything arranged. Now go on in. It's late." 2 weeks later, Emma woke up in the guest house on the Blackwell estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. It felt like a different universe compared to her cramped apartment in Bushwick. The little cottage, nestled beside a lush garden, had large windows that opened to a sparkling lake and a cozy fireplace that warmed the space with quiet charm. Every morning, Emma woke to birdsong instead of honking horns, but she still felt like a guest in someone else's world, careful not to break anything. Not a glass, and certainly not the fragile trust of Daniel Blackwell. Her job was simple but meaningful. Pick up Leo from preschool, play with him for a few hours, and help him with coloring or simple homework until Daniel returned from his office in Manhattan. Leo, with his radiant smile and boundless imagination, made it all easy. On the first day, He dragged her into the garden, clutching a plastic dinosaur, insisting they go treasure hunting through the flower beds. "You're the knight, and I'm the superhero," he shouted, racing around with his cape, really a crooked red ribbon, flapping behind him. Emma laughed, kneeling in the dirt beside him, not caring that her jean skirt got muddy. Daniel, at first, kept his distance. He often came home late, looking worn beneath his designer suits, offering Emma only a polite nod before carrying Leo upstairs. But sometimes he would pause at the kitchen door, quietly watching as she and Leo colored or laughed together. There was something about her simplicity, her unguarded smile, that made it hard for him to look away. One weekend evening, as a soft mist settled over Greenwich, Daniel arrived home earlier than usual. Leo, exhausted from a day of play, had fallen asleep on the couch, still clutching his plastic dinosaur. Emma was tidying up the kitchen table where they had attempted baking cookies, now mostly a mess of flour, dough, and crumbs. She jumped slightly when she saw Daniel standing in the doorway, sleeves rolled up, eyes softer than usual. "You don't have to clean this," he said, eyeing the tray of overly browned cookies. "We have a housekeeper, you know." Emma smiled sheepishly, wiping her hands on her apron. "I know, but Leo wanted to make cookies for you. Said chocolate chip was your favorite, though I think we failed pretty miserably." Daniel walked over, picked up a scorched cookie, and took a bite. He winced, then laughed. A deep, genuine sound Emma hadn't heard before. Miserably might be generous, but the thought counts. He looked at her, a new curiosity in his expression. "Stay for dinner. I ordered Italian from a place nearby. Leo will be disappointed if you're gone when he wakes up." They sat at the long dining table, the chandelier casting a warm glow over plates of pasta and glasses of red wine. Leo stirred halfway through the meal, insisted on sitting next to Emma, and chattered sleepily about the treasure they'd found in the garden before dozing off on her shoulder. Daniel carried him upstairs, and when he returned, he refilled their wine glasses. The room felt quieter, more intimate. "You're good with Leo," Daniel said, voice low. "He doesn't trust people easily, not after everything. But with you, you remind me that kids need more than just a big house." Emma sipped her wine, a gentle warmth spreading through her. "I get Leo a little. When my sister Sarah and I lost our parents, I was 18. Sarah took on everything. Rent, bills, even my dream of going to college. Now she's sick, and all I want is to give back, to keep her alive." She paused, throat tight. "Some days, I'm scared I'm not strong enough." Daniel said nothing, but his gaze darkened as if her words had touched an old wound. "You're stronger than you think, and you're not alone. Not anymore."